Picture this. September 23, 1939, Warsaw lies in ruins. Polish civilians huddle in basements as German jackboots march through the streets. But the real horror hasn't even begun. One Nazi field marshal is about to unleash a campaign of terror so brutal that it will shock even hardened SS officers. Before we reveal how this monster met his agonizing end, writhing on the gallows for 24 excruciating minutes, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and smash that like icon right now. We're Mountain America, and we're bringing you the darkest untold stories from history that mainstream channels are too afraid to touch. Turn on those notifications because what we're about to expose will shake you to your core. These stories matter, and you deserve to know the truth. His name was Wilhelm Keitel, Hitler's most loyal lapdog who signed death warrants for millions. Today we reveal how this cowardly field marshal met his agonizing end on the gallows, writhing for 24 excruciating minutes before death finally claimed him. Wilhelm Bodewin Johann Gustav Keitel entered this world on September 22, 1882, in the small German village of Helmscherode. Born into privilege as the eldest son of wealthy landowner Karl Keitel, young Wilhelm's life took a tragic turn at age 6, when his mother died from childbirth complications. Raised on the family estate and later educated at Göttingen Gymnasium, Keitel showed mediocre academic performance, a pattern that would define his entire career. His dream was simple: become a farmer like his father. But fate had darker plans. When his father refused to retire, 18-year-old Keitel joined the Prussian army in 1901. Too cheap and status-conscious for the prestigious cavalry, he settled for field artillery service. Even then, he was taking shortcuts and choosing easier paths. Marriage to wealthy heiress Lisa Fontaine in 1909 changed everything. Lisa wasn't just beautiful. She was ambitious, intelligent, and decisively superior to her husband in every way. She pushed Keitel away from his farming dreams toward military glory, a decision that would ultimately cost millions of lives. World War I erupted on July 28, 1914. Keitel served competently but unremarkably on the Western Front until shrapnel nearly killed him in Flanders. During recovery, his organizational skills, his only real talent, caught attention. By 1915, he'd clawed his way into the Army General Staff. When Germany surrendered in November 1918, the humiliating Treaty of Versailles stripped the nation of territory, imposed crushing reparations, and limited their military to just 100,000 men. For a mediocre officer like Keitel, simply surviving the massive downsizing was an achievement. Throughout the 1920s and early 1930s, Keitel worked in various ministry positions, secretly planning German rearmament in direct violation of international law. His defining characteristic emerged: absolute unquestioning obedience to authority. He was the perfect Nazi before the Nazis even existed. The Weimar Republic struggled under economic chaos and political instability. Hyperinflation destroyed savings, unemployment soared, and extremist parties gained ground. In this environment of desperation and resentment, men like Keitel quietly prepared for Germany's military resurrection. Everything changed when Adolf Hitler seized power in January 1933. Keitel was recovering from a heart attack and pneumonia in a Czech sanatorium. But upon returning, he immediately embraced Nazi ideology. His first meeting with Hitler in July 1933 left him starstruck and completely devoted. By 1935, Keitel served as Chief of Staff to War Minister Werner von Blomberg. During the crucial November 5, 1937 conference, Hitler revealed his vision: a series of localized wars across Central and Eastern Europe to secure German living space. While other generals questioned the timing, Keitel enthusiastically supported every word. The opportunity for ultimate advancement came through betrayal. In January 1938, Keitel discovered evidence that Blomberg's wife had worked as a prostitute. Instead of staying silent, he eagerly forwarded this information to Hermann Göring, who used it to destroy Blomberg's career. When Hitler asked Blomberg for a replacement recommendation, the disgraced minister suggested the Führer take personal command, adding dismissively, "Keitel is just the man who runs my office." Hitler's eyes lit up. "That's exactly the man I'm looking for." February 4, 1938, Wilhelm Keitel became head of the Supreme Command of Armed Forces, OKW. Everyone, including Keitel himself, knew he was utterly unqualified. But Hitler didn't want competence. He wanted obedience. Fellow officers immediately nicknamed him Le Keitel, a cruel pun combining lackey, with his surname. Behind his back they called him Hitler's blindingly loyal toady and stupid follower. Even Hermann Göring, the corpulent Luftwaffe chief, sneered that Keitel had a sergeant's mind inside a field marshal's body. Keitel's first major task involved threatening Austria into submission. When Austrian Chancellor Schuschnigg announced a referendum on independence, Hitler ordered Keitel to conduct menacing military exercises along the border. The intimidation worked perfectly. Austria fell without a shot, earning Keitel the Anschluss medal for his theatrical performance. September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, igniting World War II. Within days, Security Police Chief Reinhard Heydrich declared that all Polish nobles, clergy and Jews must die. On September 12th, Keitel eagerly added Poland's intellectuals to the extermination list. The results were horrifying. Between fall 1939 and spring 1940, approximately 60,000 Polish government officials, military officers, landowners, clergy, scientists, teachers, lawyers and doctors were systematically murdered in what became known as the intelligentsia action. Over 1,000 prisoners of war were executed in cold blood. Keitel wasn't just following orders, he was enthusiastically expanding them. He knew exactly what these directives meant: the complete destruction of Polish civilization and the reduction of surviving Poles to leaderless slaves laboring for German masters. When officers complained about these atrocities, Keitel simply ignored them until the protests stopped. Eventually, commanders and soldiers became morally numb to the horrors surrounding them. Exactly as Keitel intended, after conquering France in 6 weeks during spring 1940, the sycophantic Keitel proclaimed Hitler the greatest warlord of all time. To further humiliate France, Hitler ordered the armistice signed in the same railway car where Germany had surrendered in 1918. Keitel signed for Germany on June 22, 1940. His reward? 100,000 Reichsmarks, nearly $1 million today, as a loyalty bonus for the Polish campaign. Shortly after, Keitel received promotion to Field Marshal, though this changed nothing about how other Nazi leaders viewed him. They still considered him Hitler's spineless errand boy. But Keitel's most horrific contributions came during Operation Barbarossa, the 1941 invasion of the Soviet Union. Prior to the attack, he issued a series of criminal orders that abandoned all military ethics and international law. The Commissar order commanded German soldiers to immediately execute captured Soviet political officers. The September 1941 Unusual Severity Directive authorized killing 5,100 communists for every German casualty. Keitel specifically stated that human life was less than nothing in the East. The commando order mandated murdering captured Allied special forces even when they surrendered in uniform. The 1942 order regarding Yugoslav partisans was perhaps most chilling. The troops are authorized and obliged to use every means in this fight without restriction, even against women and children, if only it leads to success. Keitel also created the Night and Fog Decree, one of Nazi Germany's most terrifying policies. Resistance fighters in occupied territories would simply vanish without a trace, transported to concentration camps or execution sites. Families never learned their loved ones' fate. They just disappeared into the night. Approximately 7,000 people vanished under this decree across Belgium, France, Luxembourg, Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Those who survived interrogation and torture were sent to camps like Grossrosen and Natzweiler Struthof, where most perished. The decree's purpose was psychological warfare, terrorizing occupied populations into submission by demonstrating that resistance meant not just death, but complete erasure from existence. No trial, no grave, no closure for grieving families. Hitler rewarded this cruelty lavishly. 250,000 Tausends. Reichsmarks in 1942, equivalent to $2.4 million today, and 246 hectares of prime forest, property worth over $7 million modern dollars in 1944. Keitel eagerly accepted these blood-soaked gifts. War eventually touched Keitel personally. His youngest son, Hans-Georg, died fighting in Russia in July 1941. His eldest son, Karl-Heinz, became a Soviet prisoner. Yet even these devastating losses couldn't shake his fanatical loyalty to Hitler. During the July 20, 1944 assassination attempt, when Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg's bomb exploded in the conference room, Keitel personally helped the wounded Führer escape the carnage. In the subsequent purge, over 7,000 people were arrested and nearly 5,000 executed on the flimsiest evidence. Keitel not only participated in the kangaroo court proceedings, but personally delivered Hitler's ultimatum to Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox suicide or public trial. To protect his family from Nazi retribution, Rommel chose the cyanide pill. As Berlin crumbled in spring 1945, Keitel desperately called for counterattacks that couldn't possibly succeed. German forces were shattered, ammunition exhausted, fuel depleted, yet Keitel kept issuing impossible orders, detached from reality like his master. When Hitler shot himself on April 30th, the lackey's world collapsed. Initially, General Alfred Jodl signed Germany's surrender in Reims on May 7th, but the Soviets insisted that Keitel himself, as supreme military commander, must personally sign the final document. They feared another stab-in-the-back myth and demanded the German military's complete humiliation. On the night of May 8, 1945, Wilhelm Keitel signed Germany's unconditional surrender in Berlin. Witnesses reported he groveled to Admiral Dönitz exactly as he had to Hitler, a coward to the very end. Minister Albert Speer later confirmed this pathetic display. Arrested on May 13, 1945, Keitel faced the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg. Prosecutors charged him with conspiracy to commit crimes against peace, planning aggressive wars, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. His defense was pathetic. "I was just following orders." Prison psychiatrist G.M. Gilbert observed that Keitel had no more backbone than a jellyfish. When confronted with evidence of his crimes, he claimed, "As these atrocities developed, one from the other, step by step, and without any foreknowledge of the consequences, destiny took its tragic course. The prosecutors weren't fooled. They presented overwhelming evidence, the criminal orders bearing his signature, testimony from survivors, documentation of his enthusiastic participation in planning genocide." Keitel had known exactly what he was doing. The tribunal wasn't fooled. On October 1, 1946, they found Keitel guilty on all 4 counts and sentenced him to death by hanging. His request for a military execution by firing squad was denied. His acts were criminal, not military. October 16, 1946, Execution Day. Keitel told prison chaplain Henry Göring, "You have helped me more than you know. May Christ my Savior stand by me all the way. I shall need him so much." After receiving communion, he walked to the gallows with surprising dignity, perhaps the only dignified moment in his entire career. His final words, "I call on God Almighty to have mercy on the German people. More than 2 million German soldiers went to their death for the fatherland before me. I follow now my sons, all for Germany." But justice came with brutal irony. American Master Sergeant John C. Woods, the executioner, deliberately botched the job. The trapdoor was too small, causing painful head injuries as Keitel dropped. Without sufficient force to snap his neck, he strangled slowly, convulsing in agony for 24 excruciating minutes before death finally ended his suffering. Woods later boasted, "I performed all executions correctly and was very proud of my work." Military policeman Joseph Malta, who assisted, declared 50 years later, "It was a pleasure doing it. I'd do it all over again." Keitel's corpse was cremated and his ashes scattered in the Wensbach River, a small tributary of the Isar. No grave, no memorial. No trace remained of Hitler's most loyal lapdog. Wilhelm Keitel died as he lived, a coward, a sycophant, and a war criminal. His 24-minute death throes were a fitting end for a man who signed orders condemning millions to far worse fates. Unlike his victims who died quickly from bullets or slowly in gas chambers, Keitel experienced every second of his prolonged agony, fully conscious until the end. There were no tears shed for Wilhelm Keitel. History remembers him not as a soldier, but as a spineless lackey who enabled genocide, ordered the murder of women and children, and paid the ultimate price for his crimes. His legacy serves as a permanent reminder that just following orders is never an acceptable defense for evil. The Nuremberg trials established that principle firmly. Every individual bears personal responsibility for their actions, regardless of superior orders. This is the power of historical justice. Evil never truly escapes consequences. If these untold stories of Nazi war criminals and historical justice fascinate you, you need to subscribe to Mountain America right now and smash that notification bell. We're exposing the darkest chapters of history that others won't touch, bringing you shocking true stories weekly. Like this video if you believe these stories deserve to be told, and drop a comment below telling us which historical figure or event we should investigate next. Share this with someone who needs to understand how monsters meet their end. Until next time, remember, history's greatest criminals always face their reckoning. This is Mountain America, and we'll see you in the next episode.